What separates the men who command respect from those who beg for attention? What makes one man unshakable while another crumbles under emotional manipulation? The difference isn't luck, it's not genetics, it's knowledge. And the knowledge I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you see relationships, women, and yourself. Once you understand what I'm going to tell you today, the fog lifts, the confusion ends, the games stop working. You'll see through manipulation before it even begins. You'll recognize tests before they trap you, and most importantly, you'll never again sacrifice your dignity for temporary affection. I need you engaged right now. This isn't content you consume passively. This is a turning point, so hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment saying, "I choose clarity over blindness." That's your commitment to yourself. That's your first step toward taking back control. And once you've done that, stay locked in, because what I'm about to share will expose 5 psychological truths that most men never discover until it's too late. Truth 1. The illusion of unconditional love. Most men enter relationships carrying a beautiful but dangerous belief. They think that when a woman says, "I love you," she means she loves everything about you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your failures, your victories. They imagine her love as this eternal flame that burns regardless of circumstances, never flickering, never fading. But here's the reality check nobody wants to hear. What most men experience in modern relationships isn't unconditional love. It's transactional affection dressed up in romantic language. Think carefully about your own experiences. How does her warmth change when your income drops? How does her affection shift when you stop providing the same level of attention? What happens to her enthusiasm when the exciting early phase wears off and real life sets in? For many women, love operates on a spectrum tied directly to what you provide: security, stability, excitement, status. When those elements are present, affection flows freely. When they diminish, so does the warmth. Now, before you think I'm attacking women, understand this. It's not about good or bad. It's about biology and survival instincts. Women are wired to seek security and stability. Their attraction and affection often mirror their sense of safety and provision. This isn't evil, it's evolutionary psychology. But here's where men get destroyed. They refuse to acknowledge this reality. They cling desperately to the fantasy that their loyalty alone should guarantee devotion. They believe sacrifice equals reciprocity, so they give endlessly. Energy, time, money, emotional support, everything. They pour themselves out expecting the same dedication in return. And when it doesn't come, when she pulls away despite everything they've given, they're confused, they're devastated. They ask, "How could my loyalty not be enough?" The problem isn't that conditions exist in relationships. The problem is that men walk in blindfolded, refusing to see them. Here's the shift that changes everything. Once you recognize that much of what passes for love is actually conditional appreciation, you stop being naive. You don't become cynical or bitter. You become strategic. Instead of giving blindly, you start observing patterns. Instead of measuring her love by sweet words, you measure it by consistent actions. Instead of judging her devotion when everything is perfect, you evaluate how she behaves when things get difficult. This awareness is liberation. You realize that what you thought was deep connection was often admiration for your consistency, gratitude for your provision, or attraction to your status. Not genuine attachment to who you are as a human being. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Your entire approach transforms. So how does this knowledge empower you? It forces you to stop over-investing emotionally before someone has proven they deserve it. It teaches you that love isn't a blank check you sign until your account is empty. It reminds you to require reciprocity instead of assuming it. If her affection only appears when your bank account is full, you know exactly what you're dealing with. If her love fluctuates with your mood or your success, You understand the foundation it's built on. And when you understand, you stop being enslaved by it. The man who grasps this truth stops pouring himself out without boundaries. He protects his resources, his time, his energy, his devotion. He chooses carefully who earns access to them. He doesn't close his heart, but he guards the gate. And that single shift changes the entire power dynamic. Because once you know this truth, you're no longer desperate for approval. You're no longer blind to the conditions driving her behavior. You become intentional, observant, and powerful. Truth 2. Your attention is your greatest currency. Here's what most men don't realize. Your attention is worth more than your money. It's worth more than your gifts. It's one of the most valuable assets you possess, and you're giving it away like free samples at a supermarket. Every text message, every compliment, every late-night conversation represents energy. And energy is influence. Influence is power. But when you hand it out indiscriminately, it becomes worthless. Watch what typically happens. You meet a woman you like. Immediately you flood her with attention, constant texts, comments on every social media post, compliments about her appearance, her personality, everything. You think you're showing genuine interest. You think you're standing out. But here's the brutal truth. Abundance destroys value. Anything freely available gets taken for granted. Women instinctively understand the power of attention. They know the thrill of being desired, admired, validated constantly. For many, it's not even about you specifically, it's about the feeling of being wanted. The more attention you provide, the more they consume. But here's the paradox. That flood of validation doesn't bring them closer, it actually pushes them away. Because when something is always available, there's no need to pursue it. You've seen this pattern. The guy who's always available, always calling, always chasing becomes invisible. His presence is so constant it loses all impact. She doesn't wonder about him. She doesn't miss him. Why would she? He's already there, waiting, ready to drop everything at her slightest hint of interest. The chase ends before it begins and she feels zero need to invest. But watch what happens when a man pulls back, when the constant stream of validation suddenly dries up. Silence becomes deafening. Absence becomes presence. She starts to notice the gap. Questions creep in. Where is he? Why hasn't he texted? Who has his attention now? That shift creates something powerful. Curiosity, desire, even fear. This is the truth that transforms everything. The more selective you are with your attention, the more valuable it becomes. When you stop distributing it recklessly, it transforms into something rare, and rarity creates demand. Your glance becomes meaningful, your compliments carry weight, your time feels like a privilege, not a right. Here's where men get confused. They think withdrawing attention means playing cruel mind games. It's not about games, it's about self-respect. When you realize your attention is sacred, you stop wasting it on people who don't reciprocate. You stop chasing validation from someone who only enjoys the spotlight but refuses to give anything back. This is when the power dynamic flips completely. Instead of being the man begging for recognition, you become the man she works to impress. Instead of competing for her validation, you recognize that your validation is what matters. And the more you invest in yourself, your goals, your growth, your health, your wealth, the rarer and more valuable your attention becomes naturally. Think about the difference. A man who pours all his energy into chasing one woman ends up drained and dismissed. But a man who channels that energy into building himself becomes magnetic. He doesn't chase. Women gravitate toward him because his attention feels earned, not automatic. He becomes the prize, not the pursuer. So here's the action step. Protect your attention like it's gold. Give it wisely, never freely. Observe how people respond when they realize it's no longer guaranteed. Women who once took you for granted will suddenly shift. They'll lean in. They'll compete for what you no longer hand out easily. And here's the final insight. When you understand the power of your attention, you stop living as a desperate chaser. You transform into a selective chooser, and in that transformation, everything changes. Truth. 3. Emotional mastery is non-negotiable power. For decades, men have been conditioned to prove love through reaction. She ignores you? Chase harder. She withdraws. Pour in more effort. She creates drama. Match her intensity with your own. And if she threatens to leave, you panic. You beg, thinking desperation demonstrates devotion. This cycle has imprisoned countless men in emotional slavery, turning them into puppets dancing to someone else's strings. Here's what you must understand clearly. The strongest weapon in modern relationships isn't beauty or charm, it's emotional manipulation, the ability to move your emotions at will. Women test your anger, they test your jealousy, they test your insecurity. And every single time you explode, panic, or plead, you hand them concrete proof that they control you. If she knows that silent treatment drives you insane, she can deploy it whenever she wants compliance. If she knows your jealousy makes you reckless, she can trigger it to manipulate your behavior. If she knows your fear of abandonment makes you beg, she can use that terror as a leash. You're predictable. Reactions become her leverage. The more emotionally reactive you are, the easier you are to control. But something profound happens when you develop emotional mastery, when her silence no longer rattles you, when her mood swings no longer send you into panic mode, when her threats no longer shatter your composure. Suddenly the manipulation stops working. Your calmness becomes unsettling to her. Your steadiness becomes confusing. Your refusal to crumble under pressure forces her to engage you as an equal, not a puppet. Understand this fundamental truth. A man who cannot control his emotions is easily manipulated. A man who masters them becomes untouchable. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings or becoming cold. It means refusing to let emotions dictate your actions. It means recognizing that uncontrolled anger is weakness, that loud jealousy broadcasts insecurity, that begging, even when dressed up as loyalty, is really just desperation. Picture these scenarios. She storms out fully expecting you to chase after her. You remain calm. She gives you the silent treatment, anticipating a frantic apology. You continue with your day, steady and composed. She hints at leaving, expecting panic and negotiation. You respond with quiet strength, genuinely prepared to walk away if respect is absent. That is emotional control in action. And do you know what happens? Respect. Because true strength in a man isn't measured by how loud he yells or how frantically he reacts. It's measured by how grounded he remains when deliberately tested. Women are naturally drawn to mystery, to stability, to a man who cannot be emotionally pushed around like a toy. Emotional control transforms you into that man. Here's the deeper transformation. Emotional mastery changes how you see yourself. You stop feeling ashamed of having emotions, but you no longer let them rule you. You understand that silence often carries more power than 1,000 words. You learn that walking away is sometimes the strongest statement you can make. And in that stillness, you discover genuine power. The reality is this: when you gain emotional control, you break manipulation at its root. Tears no longer sway your decisions. Anger no longer intimidates you. Withdrawal no longer enslaves you. She realizes she must engage you with genuine respect, not theatrical games. She must demonstrate real character, not temporary performances. And here's the most important point. When you control yourself, you control the relationship dynamic. not through domination or manipulation, but by refusing to be moved like a chess piece on her board. You set the rhythm, you set the standard. She either rises to your level or she exits. Either outcome preserves your dignity. This is why emotional mastery is absolutely critical. Without it, you'll always be reactive, always responding to her moods. With it, you establish the frame and the entire game transforms. Truth 4. Options create freedom. Freedom creates power. From childhood, men absorb a destructive lie that women are the prize and men must chase, perform and prove themselves worthy just to maintain attention. This belief breeds desperation. It convinces men that if they lose one woman, they'll never find another. So they cling, they tolerate disrespect, they lower standards, they accept crumbs, all because they believe she represents their only option. But here's the reality. Men have options too. The critical difference is this. A woman's options are given while a man's options are built. A young woman can enter any room and attract attention effortlessly. But for men, options don't fall into laps. They're forged in the gym through discipline. They're built in careers through years of focused effort. They're sharpened through developing confidence, social skills and purpose. A man who refuses to build himself remains trapped in scarcity thinking. His options stay limited, and so does his power. But a man who consistently invests in self-improvement is never without choices. He's not desperate because he knows his value increases with every improvement. And when he truly sees this, the entire relationship dynamic shifts fundamentally. Think about it honestly. If you believe she's the only woman who will ever want you, you'll tolerate her games, her disrespect, her minimal effort. You'll accept partial love because you fear having no love at all. But if you know that countless women exist who would value the man you've become, you'll never beg to remain in situations that drain you. Options create freedom. Freedom is power. This is why women are naturally drawn to men who don't seem afraid of losing them. They sense abundance. They detect choice. And ironically, that very energy, being genuinely unafraid to walk away, makes you more attractive. Because nothing captivates like a man who doesn't cling from fear. Here's the breakthrough moment. Once you understand your options, you stop chasing like someone starving. You stop diminishing yourself to maintain her attention. You stop negotiating your dignity in exchange for temporary affection. You stand with certainty, knowing that if one woman leaves, others will arrive, often better ones. And this doesn't just change how she perceives you, it transforms how you see yourself. Suddenly, rejection doesn't terrify you. Silence doesn't crush you. Endings don't destroy you because you know abundance exists and you're capable of attracting it. That mindset alone eliminates desperation from your energy, and women sense it immediately. A man with genuine options doesn't just stay in relationships. He consciously chooses them. He doesn't beg for respect. He requires it. He doesn't fear loss. He accepts it as part of life. And because he can walk away whenever necessary, manipulation stops working. Threats become meaningless. Guilt loses power. Scarcity has no hold on him. So here's the essential lesson. Build yourself relentlessly until you have real choices. Invest in your physique, your career, your skills, your mind. Create legitimate options, and you'll never again be trapped by fear of losing one woman. Because once you know the reality of options, you stop living in desperation. You start living in freedom. And that freedom makes you genuinely untouchable. Truth 5. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. Too many men enter relationships ready to sacrifice everything. Time, effort, money, loyalty, devotion. But they abandon the one thing that matters most. Respect for themselves. They place romance above dignity. They prioritize desire over standards. They let beauty blind them to boundaries. And when they do this, they surrender their power without even realizing it. A man without self-respect is like a fortress without walls. Easy to invade, easy to conquer, easy to control. Women detect this weakness instantly. They know when a man will bend his principles just to keep them close. They recognize when he'll overlook lies, excuses and broken promises because he fears losing them more than losing his integrity. And once they sense this weakness, they'll test it repeatedly. Here's the harsh truth. If you cannot defend your self-respect, you cannot defend anything else either. You can shower her with gifts, write poetry, sacrifice your time, and still end up discarded. Because none of it matters if you've demonstrated you're willing to betray yourself just to keep her. Love without self-respect isn't love, it's submission. Now imagine the opposite. Picture a man who draws clear boundaries, not walls to shut people out, but lines that define acceptable behaviour. He doesn't accept yelling, name-calling, manipulation, or betrayal disguised as affection. He doesn't accept being treated as an option while giving maximum effort. He doesn't tolerate half-hearted commitment from someone expecting full devotion. That man isn't arrogant, he isn't cruel, he simply respects himself. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you place self-respect above desire, you become more attractive, not less. Your words carry weight because you stand firm. Your presence commands attention because you embody genuine strength. You don't have to demand respect. You radiate it naturally, and people, women included, respond to that energy powerfully. Self-respect also transforms relationship dynamics completely. When you raise your standards, she either rises to meet them or she leaves. Either way, you win. If she rises, you gain a partner who genuinely values and respects you. If she leaves, you maintain your dignity intact. There's no loss in that equation. But without self-respect, the cycle becomes brutal. You'll rationalize disrespect. You'll justify lies. You'll accept mistreatment as normal. And over time, you won't just lose her, you'll lose yourself. That's the slow death of a man's spirit, and it's far more painful than any breakup. Here's the awakening. Once you grasp the non-negotiable value of self-respect, everything else falls into place naturally. Your attention becomes more valuable because you stop wasting it. Your emotions come under control because you refuse chaos. Your options expand because you stop settling. And your capacity for love becomes stronger because it comes from choice, not desperation. This is the final truth that binds all the others together. Love without respect is illusion. Relationships without respect are prisons. And a man without self-respect is defeated before any battle begins. So never negotiate your dignity for temporary affection. Never sacrifice your peace just to avoid being alone. Never allow physical beauty to blind you into lowering your standards. Respect yourself first and everything else shifts naturally. You've now absorbed 5 fundamental truths that most men never learn. Love operates on conditions more often than not. Your attention is currency, not charity. Your emotions are tools to master, not weapons for others to use. Your options multiply as you build yourself. And above everything, self-respect is absolutely non-negotiable. When a man finally opens his eyes to these realities, something profound occurs. He stops living blindly. He stops giving without discernment. He stops surrendering his dignity in the name of love. He doesn't become bitter or cold. He becomes aware. He becomes sharp. He becomes intentional. Picture the stark difference. One man begs for scraps of attention, always reacting, always chasing, always lowering standards just to keep someone nearby. The other man stands grounded. He observes carefully. He chooses deliberately. He protects his energy, guards his attention, masters his emotions, embraces his options, and above all, respects himself completely? Which man commands genuine respect? Which man can no longer be manipulated through games? The answer is obvious. This is the shift that terrifies manipulation itself. Because once you see through illusions, once you stop being moved by the same tired tactics, once you genuinely understand your value, the game ends. The old strategies stop working. Silent treatments, emotional tests, threats, withdrawal of affection. They all fall flat because you recognize them for what they are. You're no longer the pawn being moved around the board. You become the one setting the rules. And here's the truth you must carry forward. Once men know this, manipulation loses its power, not because women lose, but because games become impossible. What remains is respect, clarity, and the possibility of genuine connection. That's the ground where real love can actually exist. So if you've stayed with me until this point, don't keep this awakening to yourself. Subscribe right now so you never miss strategies that keep you in control. Hit that like button and share this video with men who need to wake up. Leave a comment telling me which truth hit hardest and how you plan to apply it. Because the moment you start living these truths, you stop being controlled. You start being in control, and that's when absolutely everything changes. The power has always been yours. Now you finally know how to use it.